Welcome to White Women Wake Up. I'm Jonelle.
And I'm Karen.
Each week, one of us brings a topic to the table, something we've been wrestling with or reading about in our own lives.
And the other reacts in real time, no scripts, no prep, just an honest conversation between a mother and daughter spanning generations about what it means to wake up as white women in a world shaped by bias, power, and inherited patterns.
We don't always agree, and it's not always comfortable, but we show up anyways.
Let's wake up.
Let's wake up.
As we were reading our intro script, and I was thinking about inherited patterns.
Okay.
It's the holidays, so it feels like everything is an inherited pattern.
Oh, yeah.
And in reflecting on last week's topic, I've really been listening to my conversations with people. So last week we were talking about
remind everyone.
This idea that we often share the highlight of how we may have helped someone. I gave to Toys for Tots, or I gave for this, and all of that is really great. And yet I often am not part of collective conversations around how someone was oppressed to begin with. So I used the metaphor last week about, helping someone dig out of the hole.
Yeah.
But we forget we don't talk about how did they get to that hole to begin with.
Yes.
And was I complicit in the way in which they got into that hole? So I can't say so.
Or not even complicit, but then, or how, as we as a society, can we be there for support them during longer periods of time, not just these moments of help?
Yeah.
How can we?
Yeah. But I was actually really,
lift up
I don't know if I was articulate
as a whole.
I don't know if I was articulate enough, but what I guess I was really interested in is the backstory of how someone became oppressed and what are the systems that led to that oppression.
I think you did a great I think you did a great job. This is where, again,
but
your angle on that topic, because I was going to talk about white saviorness as well, but with a different angle, probably a more traditional angle. So I actually think you did a great job.
So I did
bringing
reflect
the topic to the
and
table.
Notice, and I was really in one of the conversations that you were part of. Someone started talking about the youth shelter that you were in, and I think you had even forgotten our conversation that we had. And right away you started talking about what had lent some of the young people to be in the space that they did not have homes, or that they were houseless. They were experiencing houselessness. And I was really proud of that, or proud of you in that conversation, because it opened up a bigger conversation that wasn't just centered on the white savior help, right? The helpness, right? It centered on the person and who they were, and I was really glad about that.
Well, and I said that last time on the podcast too. Is my intention? I mean, one, because I also just feel uncomfortable in the praise of me, because that's not why I'm doing these. That's not why I'm doing this. And then two, to your point, I think it does bring up a great larger conversation about a lot of people do have bias around street youth, and really helping, humanize.
Well, we have so much bias around poverty.
Well, everything. And really humanizing these people in these conversations. And so when I can have that, and when I can spark that conversation with people, I'll always do it.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. This is kind of what you were talking about last time, is we oftentimes focus on what we're doing and not the actual people not that are being helped, and helped is a hard
and
word,
I don't think
because
we're ever going to work on our really big issues unless we can talk about it in nonpartisan ways, unless we can really go in it in ways that can make some real change. Yeah. So anyways, in the reflection, I was noticing, when did my community of whiteness center on their own giving versus when did we center on someone who's been oppressed in their story, and how we might have dug the hole to begin with. And so it's just something to be aware of, I guess.
I mean,
and to also to re-steer the conversation. Because that was something that I found in another conversation. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit my mic. I found that in another conversation that I was able to, affirm the person because what they did was amazing.
Yeah.
And yet also say, well, tell me a little bit about their story.
Love that.
So it really did help. It did help. Yeah.
And I think it's also reflecting these holiday seasons too is, we talked about this last time, a lot of the angel tea giving or Salvation Army, all of those things. And they're so important, great for the family, so important for kids who might not have a holiday. Or I'm seeing ones where people are even taking care of the parents within the angel tree and they're getting, the mom and dad stuff, or they're finding out more.
And that's really getting to know the story,
and it's getting to know the story.
Yeah.
But I think at least what I'm understanding with your point is these things tend to happen around certain periods of the year. What are we doing the rest of the year that's supporting, our fellow human in that have been torn down by these systems.
Yeah.
And so, and it's like,
yeah.
It's both.
That's why the bingo card
it's not
is so
or
important.
It's and.
Because we can go back and reflect.
Okay. Our bingo card.
So speaking of stories,
yes. Okay.
I
parents
want to,
and she has been. I'm really curious. You've been talking that this is a heated.
Well, it's
topic.
not heated, but it's just such a fascinating topic to me, and so. When a couple weeks ago, I was recommending a book, and I found I really, honestly, I'm so embarrassed, but I live in oblivion sometimes. And so when
a lot of us that white women,
when people talk about, this book ban or this book ban, I just kind of let it go over my head. So I recommended a book. One of my favorite authors is Toni Morrison, and I was kind of like, maybe that's not going super deep in history, but I wanted to lift Toni Morrison up, so we did in our Instagram. And then one of my favorite books, well, all of her books actually have the way she mothered, the way she lived her life, who she was as a human being has influenced so much of me. But the first book I ever read from her was Bluest Eyes. And Bluest Eyes, I don't know if you recall, but it was a little Black girl that she wanted blue eyes. Yeah. And so it was her struggle of racism. Well, that is a really big banned book. So I thought, okay, I'm going to, that's shocked me that it's banned. And I thought, I'm going to go and look up one of Jonelle's favorite books to find out if it's banned.
Well, what I think is this is so topical because this was your bingo.
Yeah.
That you talked about a couple episodes ago about reading banned books.
So it really got me interested in this. So what did you used to write a book report on every year?
Gosh. Walk 2 Moons.
And guess what?
Is it banned?
Yes.
Why is it banned?
It is banned.
Crazy.
It is crazy. So you started reading, why I laugh about this book, and this is what kind of got me on it. I thought, Bluest Eyes, but then Jonelle loved every and Jonelle legitimately...
How did we not know I was neurodivergent then?
Jonelle,
let's be real.
Jonelle legitimately, we read this book every time. And every time she would write a book report on this book.
Not every time, for a couple of years. Probably like 3rd to 5th grade.
So it is banned because...
Will you tell people more what it's about?
So the book is about a 13-year-old girl traveling cross-country with her grandparents to find her mother who left home. As they drive from Ohio to Idaho, Sal tells her grandparent... I picked out a little. Grandparents, the story of her friend Phoebe Winterbottom. Do you remember this?
No,
whose family unravels after a mysterious stranger leaves messages at their door. Phoebe is convinced that her mother was kidnapped. The novel weaves 2 narratives: Sal's search for her mother and Phoebe's search for answers. But basically, first of all, it has indigenous
I was about
roots.
to say the main character is indigenous.
It's about the goal is about walking in someone else's moccasins. That's the metaphor in there. But it also had, I believe, it had miscarriage in there.
Yeah.
It had grief and it had loss.
Wow, that was a deep
And
book
this
for a
book,
child to read. You
but
really
you loved this
I mean, I loved
book.
it.
And it meant so much to you.
I want to go
and
read it
so
again.
I started thinking about my journey in going beyond myself, going beyond my bubble. And really, but for me, books have been the first gateway into other people's stories and understanding what other people's story is. So another a book that I
Can we step back a little bit more to give people context and me a little reminder? So this book is banned because it's for young adults, correct?
It's
and
for
so they
young
feel
adults.
so what do they say the age range is roughly?
They didn't say the age range.
So
they're just banning.
It's a young adult book. No, I meant the author, what they say.
Yeah.
So it's a young adult book, and so people feel like it's inappropriate.
Because it has things like miscarriage, loss. I mean, things that are, it's funny because over the holidays, my husband and I have been watching some Hallmark movies for Christmas. And, they're opening up the subject matter. There is divorce on there. There's pregnancy before marriage. They're not doing just this these subjects that they used to do when my dad would watch Hallmark. So clearly people are becoming, and I hate to use Hallmark as an example of storytelling, but if we're going to look at the narrowness of a story and a curated, an uber curated story, they're integrating some hard topics. So why can't we talk about, 13-year-olds have witnessed their mothers having miscarriages.
Well, they've witnessed.
Yeah, they've witnessed a lot.
It's interesting. It says it's considered age appropriate for 3rd to 7th grade or 10 to 13. But I feel like 3rd graders are younger than 10.
And many 3rd graders have already had their period.
Which is right aware. Not many 3rd graders.
I bet you'd be surprised nowadays.
Well, nowadays they do get. I mean, I got mine in 5th grade. Because but you're right. I started reading it in 3rd grade, and I mean, I can see parents surprised with some of the topics around it, but it's not like it was done in a.
Well, wait till I get into the nitty-gritty of banned books. You're going to be.
Tell me more. Sorry, we don't need to continue.
I just want to talk. I want to use one of my examples. So I did with Blue Eyes, but another book that really stepped me into the histories of slavery and the histories of Black women in particular, is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. She also wrote the book Caste, which is a different way of writing than this book. And this book is about the great migration of African Americans from the South to the North. And it spans 3 or 4 generations of women. And one of the things I remember in this book that was so heart-wrenching is I never knew in slavery, in the laws of slavery, if a black man and a woman were married, but they were then sold to different plantations, their marriage was null and void. And that was heartbreaking to me, just heartbreaking. And it also, to me, felt so hypocritical because it's like, the white person, my ancestors, started a systemic way of not allowing for solid marriages within Black communities. And so but that book was so instrumental, and many others since, there are many. But of course, that book is banned.
It's another way
that this book is banned.
Well, of course, because so that shows.
So anyways,
our history,
since 24-25, 6,800 instances of school book bans have been implemented.
So in the last year.
Last year. Since 2021, in 45 states, 451 public school districts, 22,000 books have been banned. 45 states.
Now, this is where my ignorance comes in, because I like to think
22,000 books.
I mean, 22,000 books is crazy.
Crazy.
But in my mind, yes, you're going to have some states that are going to go uber crazy, whatever. But 45 states, that's what more shocks me about this, because I would like to think that there's more than just 5 states that don't agree with book banning.
But now you need to know the background of book banning. So for me, I listen to news, and Jonelle she doesn't listen to mainstream news. I do. And mainstream news loves to talk about a new book ban and what's happening in the book ban and things like that. And it really, actually, the more I think about this, the more that, again, I feel like, did the media feed this?
Oh, I'm sure.
So in order to let me explain how to get a book ban, because I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So to get a book removed, you need a parent, a community member, or an organization. But I'm going to talk about this a little bit more.
Clarify, when it's removed, is it just removed from a school? Is it removed from the state? Is it removed from stores selling it?
Well, this is where media confuses us, because often we think it's like nationwide.
Well, that kind of I would assume it's like statewide is what they're talking about book
bans. But sometimes it's only school-wide or school district-wide, and yet it gets, blown up in the media like, another school ban. So,
but it's still awful.
So you need to have just one person, a parent, a community member that challenges it to the library and says this book should be removed. They need to write like a statement. So they need to say, pause the book. They need to write a statement, and they need to, so it's title being challenged, the reason, why is it inappropriate? A form, they need to write a list of objections, and they need to sign it. And that then goes to a school or a library or a district. When it's been challenged, typically 20 to 50 times, that's when a district or a school will pull it, or they'll pause student access, or I would think a good district would convene a review committee. But here's the challenge. They say only about 11 people are doing this. And these 11 people, one of the persons did over 60% of the challenges. So in other words, there's someone
nationwide.
There's someone sitting and writing these challenges and sending them out.
How can they prove that only 11 people? That's 22,000 books.
And they don't know them because their names are not disclosed in public summarized data.
But then how do they know only 11 people have done 60% of the 22,000
This was something
books?
that I looked. The analysis describes them as a small, hyperactive group of adults who repeatedly submit formal challenges. Supposedly,
well, and I guess when you think about it, like if they're doing one challenge for one school, district,
why not send it out to everybody?
Send it out to a bunch. What horrifies me about this, besides the obvious, is it's who also gives them the control and justification.
They've learned the system.
But to take away from other people, just because someone is uncomfortable with something doesn't mean, like, and again, this is not porn out there. This is not.
Well, some of it, they see it as porn because they see anything about transgender youth as pornography. They see maybe things around abortion as pornography. But there's no way,
but porn has a definition.
Yeah.
Like transgender, that's not porn. Porn is defined as naked, like visual naked and around sexual.
Yeah. I think the bigger issue to me is this idea that 22,000 books have been banned, that the influence, again...
Is it 22,000 individual titles?
Since 2021. No, not individual titles.
That's where I think.
There's about 6,000 individual titles.
Okay.
So that's the big thing on that one. There's between 4,000 to 6,000 individual titles. Now, here's the challenge, though, is when these people bog the system down with 20 to 50 challenges. So let's say your school district here in Washington gets bogged down by 50 challenges on this particular book. doesn't seem that hard to do, does it?
No.
Or 20, all of a sudden you immediately pull the book because they can't. So now the book is off the shelf.
Yeah.
So this group, whoever are these people doing this, they've created a lot of power. And it's not that difficult. It's
this
paperwork.
is what I'm saying, which makes me mad outside of
then immediately the district, and part of me feels like, oh my God, am I giving people fodder out there that will one of our audience actually do this, which would make me so sad. But so then the district pulls the book. They pause the students' access to the book.
Yeah.
So whatever that means in the library or whatever.
Yeah.
Then they have to obviously do a review committee. Well, we know what review committees are like, especially in school systems. This could take several months.
Yeah.
And so hours of paperwork. So basically, many districts right now temporarily just put pending review because the challenges are overwhelming. Okay. And the challenges, if you don't do what the challenge is doing, if the school district does, it's a climate of fear. Like they're not be responding to the concerns of the parents. They're not responding to the complaints and so forth. So now,
okay.
But so in your just this conversation between you and I think you can answer part of the research. If we both talked about our favorite books that opened our hearts to diverse narratives, what then happens when those books are banned? What happens to human beings? What do you think?
Well, we've talked about this before. I mean, I've brought this topic up before when I talked about my conversation in a different tone about how I feel uncomfortable around like authors who don't the author conversation. And what I learned during that too was so much of our internal biases are actually developed through books. Through early reading. I mean, yes, there's so much of your like external environment, but so much is also, and they talk the same thing I learned with the TVs and the movies. This is why it's so important to have like queer characters or BIPOC characters who are not tropes, who are actual, like you look at
human beings.
Schitt's Creek and like they did a beautiful job of not making them tropes, but just human beings. And again, by silencing that, you just, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's actually, well, it leads to the DEI efforts, right?
Well,
because if we can't cure stories, like if what we were talking about last podcast was this whole idea of like, yes, it's wonderful that people do good, but we need to hear the root cause or someone's story as to why they were oppressed. That's so important. And if we can't read these stories, it really limits the way we grow.
But not even about oppression. Like you're going to another level of like history and learning learning access. And I agree with that. But if we're looking at just like the base level, I mean, it's not surprising. I shouldn't have been that surprised, but I was surprised by how much that can actually influence people's perspective. Like I thought
when you read a story,
I thought I thought external factors and family and things of that sort, like your environment, were much more dominant than I realized. And now they are still dominant, but it was a close, like almost like 40 to 50% of your inherited patterns of your perspective comes from media like books or new, and they say
and
again,
I think the
from
fear
such a young age
is that one of the biggest is to control culture, to control the narrative, but to have power over whose voices matter. But like you said, it was interesting just listening to you right now. You're saying that when you read a book, I don't think, like, it's to understand. It's possibly to see yourself in that story, but it's not to necessarily, like, if you don't have a propensity to change if you're cisgender, you're going to be cisgender. You're not going to be changed by a book. And this is what these people are fearing.
But it's empathy.
Or they're fearing that you're going to run out and have an abortion because you've read this and typically someone's abortion story in a book is gut-wrenching. It's not necessarily taken lightly.
But the irony, like you said, is it's not about changing yourself. It's about gaining empathy. That's what these books say they do. Like, and if you think about it from the basic level of like when you read books to little kids about potty training or you having a new sibling. Like these are the things that we're trying to prepare them for. It's the same way to, again, open up your perspective. But I think the other thing that you were talking about with more like the historical and like the systems of oppression and understanding where things are set up, I think that's the other scary issue is by banning books, by setting books, you are, and we already know this is true, creating your own narrative and rewriting history. And so what happens around that, and we've seen this for a while in the US, is facts are not facts anymore to people. And facts all of a sudden become opinion. We even know we had a argument this summer with a family friend who was pretty strong on their facts, but they weren't facts, they were opinions.
Yeah, they were opinions,
but I was coming with actual facts, and they were like, well, we can each have our own opinion. And I'm like, no, there's a difference here. But as a society, we've blurred the lines between fact and opinion. And a lot of this has to do with the books and the literature that we have access to.
Okay, I want to stay on this because, so this is Amazon's banned book list of 2025.
Wait, Amazon has it.
So I want to read a couple to you because you'll be like, okay, so one obviously is The Bluest Eye. That's got us started. But The Handmaid's Tale, which we can understand because,
I don't understand
I don't even understand why it's on the banned book because it's actually really good to know. A Wrinkle in Time.
Oh my gosh. What's wrong? They have reasonings why?
No, I don't know. I mean, we could look it up.
It's a beautiful book.
It's a beautiful book. I think it's a beautiful book. Oh. Okay, a couple more. Catcher in the Rye, which is, I was required to read that. Kill a Mockingbird. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. These are classics. Anne Frank. The Diary of Anne Frank. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. That's good. This was my favorite book when I was a teenager. The Bell Jar. And it's really deep. In fact, I want to read it again because it is so poetic. The Kite Runner.
Kite.
This is one of your favorite when you were younger. Number the Stars by Louis Lowry.
I don't remember
You
Number the
loved
Stars.
that book.
What's that? Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. So anyways,
wait, I want to go back to Anne Frank though. That is just, I know. But
when you start seeing how easy it is for someone to petition banning a book because basically they don't like it or they don't want their kids to have it.
What breaks my heart is The Kite Runner is the book that got me back into reading as an adult.
I know.
There was a period of time after school and I didn't. And The Kite Runner, and audience, really quickly, we have a really funny story about Kite Runner. I was reading Kite Runner, and again, like I said, it was the book that brought me back to loving reading as an adult. And Karen asked, where are you in the book? And then she gave away a major plot point. And it was a heartbreaking plot point.
Yeah.
And so now this has become a continual joke with us every time I read a book and she asks, where are you?
Yeah.
And I say, I refuse to tell you. Yeah. And then I will not spoil it for anyone who's not read Kite Runner. But it's a funny thing in our world.
Well, one of the books that changed my perspective on Israel and Gaza is The Lemon Tree. If you're a white Christian, you need to read that book because
it's a beautiful
book. And it just opens up, like you said, it gives empathy, it gives perspective, it helps us see the
Queen
world.
Noor? Queen Noor is a
Queen
great
was great too.
Yes, that's a great one on perspective.
So anyways.
But again, going back to the point of like I was kind of saying with Kite Runner and bringing me back to like adulthood and like enjoying reading to enjoy. And we're both in 2 book clubs and it's just, and some of the books are nonsense and some are really deep and all of this, but like to not be able to explore those worlds and expand your mind
I know.
to new perspectives.
And then to be under like the control or the power of someone who thinks that they have the say in this.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we end, I want to talk about what we can do as white women to create an equitable system. Because
Love
I'm
it.
like, you look at movies and they have a rating. So why don't we do something like that? So first of all, they said content transparency instead of content erasure. So is there something,
Love
like
that.
you said, age appropriate, age readiness, contextual notes? Could a librarian put notes on something? I don't know how that works.
Or like you said, they're not allowed to check it out if they're not meeting the age. Like when you're younger, you can't go into a R-rated movie.
Or like nowadays, like if we're in part of a conference or you're part of something, you're talking about a difficult topic, you'll kind of say, here's a trigger warning.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about this. Could those trigger warnings be on there? An opt-out system instead of a universal removal.
Well, this is just
if a parent is uncomfortable with a book, can they choose an alternative? Like let their child choose something different. I love parents that are involved. And if a parent feels like, me, I was really strict on music when you were younger.
In shows.
And
there were shows we weren't allowed to watch.
And you weren't allowed to watch. And so this is not about parents not having the opportunity to speak into the way that their child needs to be raised, but because one parent or 11, as we're seeing that number is very small, is dominating this book banned place, can we do something different?
Yeah.
And can our school districts have courage to do something different?
Yeah. And that's what makes
our
me mad.
media, maybe the flip side is our media needs to broadcast the courage a district has. And because as we know, one of the big problems is media is not good at nuance.
No.
And so they're going to have to nuance this discussion. A book rating. So we talked about that. More librarians. So this is a big one.
Ooh.
One of the reasons that we have these restrictions is obviously, think about you have one librarian to a junior high with 80,000 books or whatever that might be. And that becomes difficult to manage who's looking at what. So maybe if we care about this, hey, everyone in this season of giving, give money to your librarians. And then volunteer. Yeah. And then could there be more community review panels?
Yes.
Yeah. And parent education. So not to panic, but really around media literacy. Like, so this idea of teaching how do these stories matter in parents' lives.
And that's so good. So like what got me into Walk Two Moons, and even though this was not the author, Alexa Sherman.
His our book too.
Well, I believe it.
Yeah.
Who's an Indigenous person.
Ridiculous.
He came and spoke several times at my elementary school. And it was just that's what really got me into some of like wanting to read more about like his culture and things like that.
Indigenous persons,
and so that's where you talk about like education. Is it more like bringing in authors? And we know authors would love to speak about their books, would love to speak. So are there ways in your community that you could
bring these authors and
educate people?
And he's a really great example because he was telling stories from his experience.
Yes, exactly.
So why do we have to? Well, anyways.
Why are we?
So and then
this
that's
is like
the last
Anne
one.
Frank. It's literally from her experience.
What are we afraid of to tell her story?
Yes.
It was so instrumental in my life.
Oh,
so teach critical literacy instead of projecting fragility.
I love that.
And that's important.
Anyways,
oh my gosh,
thank you. This was a great. You did get me heated.
I did get you heated.
Okay. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us on White Women Wake Up. We hope today's conversation sparked something in you. It definitely sparked something in me. Whether it's reflection, a new question, or a deeper commitment to showing up with empathy and accountability.
If you found this episode meaningful, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can also connect with us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Substack, or White Women Wake Up. We'd love to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, be open, and let's keep waking up.
Keep waking up. But I have one more plug since we're talking about books. book club
in the
email
new
us
year.
in the new year. We're going to try to get something together. So email us if you're interested.
So that's why I said I wanted to do the banned book.
I know. I love this. hello@whitewomenwakeup.com. Maybe we'll do a banned book club.
Yeah, it'd
love
be great.
It. Okay,
bye.
Okay, I'm going to stop us. Both of us, our mics are too far from us. They are not picking up things.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, let me try that again.
Lost a minute.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to keep it on that.
Okay.
So that we can see that.
But I'm going to stop it and then.
Are you going to stop our Zoom or no?
No,
Okay,
I'm stopping.
2 minutes.
Yeah.